Today we're going to cover Chapter 5, Discounted Cash Flow Valuation. Last week, we started with the single cash flow, time value money. This week, we need to dealing with multiple cash flows. Our emphasis will be using financial calculators to calculate the present value of multiple cash flows. The multiple future cash flow can be even, which we call an annuity. It's a type of loan payment, for example, or it's uneven, particularly when we do business capital budgeting, future cash flow, each sales can be different. How do we dealing with that? We're going to still use financial calculators. Please do not use Excel to do that. I want everybody using the financial calculator will learn more than the time value money. We're also using cash flow analysis, the function built in your TIBA2 Plus calculator. We're going to study loan payment. How do you find the monthly loan payment? We need to have some understanding of the basic term of commercial loans. What is the amortization loan? How do you amortize a loan amount? This chapter is a little bit difficult because it's dealing with a lot of concept and using three different methods. Now, let me just point it out. We're going to skip the annuity due, which is the payment occurred not at the end, but in the beginning. Those annuity due is a very rare situation we use it. Or actually, as a matter of fact, using in the rental payment, for example, but it's not common used in commercial loan arrangement. We also going to skip the effective annual rate and APR. How do you looking at the compound period? Our emphasis will be using financial calculators to calculate the cash flow. So we'll do chapter 5.1. In that section, our emphasis will be the present value, not the future value. In section 2, we're looking at the even cash flow. How do you calculate even cash flows? That dealing with like annuities. Number 3, let's compare to the interest rate. How do you adjust the interest rate according to the loan payment? Most amortization loans are paid in monthly. So how do we adjust the annual rate into monthly rate? We will briefly discuss the loan amortization. There are 3 ways, as discussed in the chapter, to dealing with those problems. One is the formula. Second one is the financial calculators. We're going to use the TIBA2 Plus. The third one is the Excel spreadsheet function. We definitely were going to skip the Excel function. Let's concentrate on the financial calculators. Within the financial calculator, there are 2 approaches to dealing with multiple future cash flows. One we already studied is the present value, future value keys. That is the third row. But here, since it's a multiple future cash flow, instead of FV, future value, we are using the PMT key. The PMT key is the multiple payment. So we use that to calculate loan payment. Okay. Now, if the cash flow is uneven, loan payment, for example, every month's payment are the same, but the company capital budgeting, its sales is not same. It's uneven. How do we deal with uneven? You can do it by one calculate each future value into its present value and add them up. Or, as this book suggested, we're going to use a new cash flow function key, CFI, which is the second key on the second row. That key is kind of unique, like a register. We will do it later. And remember, that one is used for uneven cash flow. It is even. If it is even, then we're using PMT. We're just using the time value money, the third row, just we did last week. But if the future cash flow is not constant, we have to use CF keys. And we're using CF key only solve present value. We solve for present value, not the future value part. Now, as I said that, always draw, when you're solving with time value money, always draw a timeline. Let's look at an even cash flow situation on the left, even cash flow situation. For example, if there is an annuity which will pay you at the end of the year $100 for 5 years. So those cash flow are even. In that case, we're using PMT. It's $100, $100. They ask you how much is that worth today, present value is. Now in this case, we are not using FV key, but using PMT. Still, we have 4 parameters. They are N, number of period, I, the interest rate per period, present value, and multiple future value, PMT. Those PMT must be the same, right? This is we're using called even cash flow. Now let's look at uneven cash flow on the right-hand side of the chart. Now, cash flow 1, cash flow 2, cash flow 3, 4, 5. 5 cash flow. They are the different level. For example, the first one is 100, second one is 500, the third one is 300, then 600, 800. Now, those are uneven cash flow, uneven cash flow. In that case, you can do one thing by longhand. Just calculate each present value of that future value. You discount it one period. Then, okay, what is the present value of cash flow 2? Now, that is kind of tedious, one by one, one by one. The financial calculator has a CF keys, which is the second row, second key. In the tutorial on how to using financial calculator, I think is the sample example. The sample example, I think 5 or 6, which shows you using CF key. You key that in one by one, one by one, using one single key. We'll demonstrate how to do that later. Okay. Now, the biggest thing now, looking at this chart, first, if you read the problem to see if the future cash flow are even or not. If the even, the constant number, we're using PMT, using time value money, and a PMT. Now, if the future cash flow is not even, then we have to using another cash flow keys, okay, different. Now, let's look at example 5.3. You are offered an investment. That investment will pay you $200 in year 1, $400 the next year, $600 the following year, at $800 at the end of the 4th year. So 4 cash flows. Every year increase $200. Now you can earn 12% on similar investment. The question is, what is the most you should pay for this one? So people offer that future cash flow. How much you would pay for that if your cost of a capital is 12%? Problem like that, First, let's do a cash flow chart. Now, this is from the textbook, but I would rather use the arrow, upward arrow, for example, 200, 400, 800, 600, 800. They are uneven. The cash are uneven. So we have to do one by one. For example, future value equal to 200, interest rate 12, period 1. Solving for present value, you get 178.57. The first one is present value for the 200 paid a year later. Second, you put 400 as your future value, n equal to 12. N equal to 2. 12 is your interest rate. Compute for present value. That present value of 400 is equal to 318.88. Now, for the 600 for 3 years, its present value is 427.07. For a 800 paid in 4 years later at the cost of a 12%, its present value is 508.41. Now, using your financial calculator, yes, you get a negative. This means it's the opposite cash flow. Right? Now, we add the present value for present value together. You have a number of 1432.93. Now, this is the present value of all those 4 future cash inflows at a 12% interest rate. Now, this is the longhand. You do one by one. What is the present value? Add them up using your time value money. Now, this example, they are using math formula, but we're going to be using financial calculators. Right? So you basically just add them up to get those financial calculators. The using financial calculator to do the present value. Now, the other quick way to do it, instead of using the PM key, you're using CF keys, cash flow keys. Now here, let's using CF key to how do you do that, this function. Now, before we do some house clean work, number one, now when you're dealing with CF keys, you have to use second and the clean key to clear all work. In other words, using second, the last row, the first key in last row, which will let you clean all the register within the CF keys. So you punch on the CF key, it gives you the number should be 0. Okay. Now you key something in if for time 0. Now can be 0, can be a negative number. Then you're using enter key to register this key. You register, for example, here is some example like a 6. Then you key, you punch CF key 6, then is the enter. When you punch enter, it registers. After registration, you have to using arrow key is the second from the right going down. When you punch the arrow key downwards, it shows you from CF0 to CF1. That means the first cash flow, what the number is. And after you enter that, when you punch another arrow enter key, then using arrow key downwards, they ask you frequencies. The FN stands for frequency. By default, it's 1. That means only that number. You don't, in most cases, you just move on. Punch the arrow key again. It shows you the cash flow key for second period. Just using this single key, CF key, you can register, I think, up to 18 different numbers. Okay? Now, you repeat for all cash flows in that order. Cash flow 1, cash flow 2, cash flow 3. Okay? Now, when you register all those cash flows, you punch, you punch the third key on second row, which stands for NPV, is net present value. We will study later using the net present value. Here, you have to go to the calculation, you punch NPV key. When you first time you punch NPV key, the I show up asking what is the discount rate. You key in 12 as 12%, 12, enter. So that the interest rate will be entered. Then using arrow key, move down to next entry. It will show you NPV, what NPV is. Then if you want to calculate what the value is, then enter compute. Then the financial calculator will calculate the NPV for you. Right, now let's do the problem again, the first problem again. As we said, it's a starting in investment. Pay you 200 for a year, then every year increase by 200 up to year 4. Your cost of capital is 12. Now, if the issuer of this company, they offer you this investment, they charge you $15,000. Would you take this project? Well, so how do you compare? You basically compare what to you the value is, what the present value for all those 4 cash flow is to you at a cost of 12%. If the value of this project to you is higher than the offering price, you accept this project. If the value of this project is below the offering price, $1,500, you reject it. Let's do it, okay? Using your financial calculators. So basically, you compare the present value with its cost. The cost, the offering cost is $1,500. This one to you only $1,432.93. So you will not buy this project. You reject it because it's not worth that much. Now here is how do you calculate those cash flows. I'm using the step, using your financial calculator. Let's do it, okay? Now this time we're using the CF key. Now please follow the step, strict follow step, okay? First, you punch CF key, then using second and a clear memory. So when the C00 cash flow now showed up 0, you keep it. You punch enter. Then you move the arrow key downwards. It shows you C01. You enter 200. You key in 200. Then hit enter. It registers the equal sign show up. CF1 equal to 200 show up. Using arrow key downward, they ask you, what is the frequency? How many 200 you have? By default, it's 1. You just move down further. You punch the downward arrow key again. This time, you enter 400 as your CF2. Enter it. Then using downward arrow key, accept default 1 frequency, go to CF3. You enter 600. Enter. Downward key, accept the 1 frequency. Then in C04, you add 800 and enter it. So basically, you entered 4 numbers. The first number you put a 0 in because there is no cash flow at now, okay? So you want that 4 cash flows, what the present value is. So now you move to NPV key. You punch NPV key. When you punch MPV key, they ask you what is I, interest rate. You key 12. Hit enter. Then using downward arrow key, it showed MPV. Then you hit CPT, compute. It'll give you the answer, 1432.93. Now, this is the way to let the CF key to register multiple future cash inflows. You don't have to do by one or one by one. Okay, it's much easier to handle that. Please check with the Appendix D on how to using CFJ key, CFI keys. Okay, so the result is 1432. Okay, let's look at another example using this example as your another work. Okay, you are consider an investment that will pay you 1,000 a year, 2,000 in 2 years, and 3,000 in 3 years. If the interest rate on your money is 10%, how much you willing to pay? Now here they showed you, they're using mathematical formula. You're looking at each present value for each cash flow, add them up. But you can looking at the calculator value. Here is the calculator solutions, right? This is a solution. Actually, they do one by hand. So n equal to 1, interest rate equal to 10, future value 1,000. If I do not put a negative sign in, they show you is here will show negative sign, negative 90909. So you calculate 09. Then you calculate the second cash flow, add them up. This is the time value money longhand equal to 4815. Now ignore the Excel function. Ignore the Excel function. Now let's look at using your CF key, do it. Using the cash flow keys. Punch CF key. Second, clear memory. In CF0, you enter 0. 0. Downward key. C01, first cash flow, you enter 40. Enter. Enter means register. Downward key. Frequency 1, downward key again. The second cash flow is 75. Key 75, then enter, register. Downward key is 1. So there are two cash flows, 40, 75. Now how much is worth today, the present value? You punch the MPV key, then given the interest rate 15%, enter, 15, enter. Downward key, then compute. The MPV showed 91.49. Now, if the broker asking for $100, would you accept this deal? Your question is no. Because the broker is charging you more than you're willing to pay. You are willing to pay anything below 91.49. So the decision variable is, the investment rule is, you always buy net present value non-negative. Okay, non-negative. Don't losing money, in other words. All right, here is the key. I do it as your exercise. Possible cash flow. Those are cash flow evaluation key. The key are, if you draw the line, the future cash flow is 100, 200, double times, 200, 300, 200 for year 2, 200 for year 3. Year 4, you get 300. Year 5, you get 300. Now let's just only do the cash flow. Cash flow today. Look at the present value, not the future value, okay? The calculate solution. Calculate solution. Here is slightly different, okay? Here's your cash flow. If you draw the line, time 1, 100 times 2, 200 times 3, 200. Now you have 2 and 3 the same, 4 and 5 the same. So how do you enter? In CF0 key, you enter 0. Then in C01, you enter 100. Okay? Then you enter 1. Frequency is 1 by default. Then you hit the downward key. Now in second cache flow, you key in 200. Then enter, register. When using downward arrow key, you put a 2 inside. Why? Because it's a repeat twice. The frequency here is 2. You change from 1 to 2, then using enter. After that, using the downward arrow key to C03. Now remember, the calculator registered these 2 in one input. So next one will be 300. Actually, is a year 4, although it shows cache flow 3. Okay, 300, enter, and in frequency you also put a 2 in it. Here, the frequency, if these 2 numbers are the same, you are using frequencies. Now, if you ask, if I don't want using frequency every time I'm using 1, yeah, you can do it. 101, 201, 201, 301, 301. That will be fine. Okay? But you also can using, if these 2 are the consecutive value the same, you can using frequencies. After you enter all the cache inflows, you hit MPV keys. Then input your interest rate 7%, enter, downward key, compute for P present value, which is A74.17. That is the number you have. Now try to do that to see if it works. This is a quiz to see if you can handle the CFI keys. Now remember the frequency. If it continue the same number, you can using the frequency to reflect the same number part. How come it's just a minute? Solution. There are some